But before we do that, we had a request from a listener to talk some about the Gabby Petito story. And, we haven't talked about that in the past because, one, it's been covered by most of the other media pretty well. And I don't know that there's a lot we can add, but I did have a couple of interesting comments on that. Just to bring you up to speed if you're not aware of that, she and her boyfriend obviously were traveling across country, and then the boyfriend wound up coming home claiming that she had just disappeared and he didn't know what happened to her. Since then, a body was found in Wyoming that has been positively identified as her body, and the initial conclusion on her cause of death was a homicide, although that's all the details. So she was murdered, but that's all the details that they're releasing.
And they don't release more because of their investigation. They don't want to give things away.
That's right. Good point. And, of course, what's come out since then, there was a police body cam footage that came out, and you said, well, how did the police get involved with these two while they were on their trip? And, of course, the police were dealing with them under a domestic violence or some kind of violence between close loved ones that was occurring apparently in the van. And then we heard the 911 tape. I don't know if you heard that. The 911 tape, somebody actually called it in and said that essentially the boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, was slapping Gabby Petito around while they were driving in their van.
And the new information on that story, the officers who pulled them over and investigated at that point, it was thought that they didn't know about that call and they didn't know that he had been hitting her because they treated her like the one who was, because they saw more evidence of her hitting him back. But actually, they did have that call. They did know that he had been hitting her, but it was kind of strange because they treated her like the one who was committing the crime.
Well, yeah, I've watched that video, and I just assumed that the reason they pulled him over was because of that call, because they got that call, they tracked down the white van, and that's why they pulled him over. But yeah, they were treating it really as a kid glove situation, saying, okay, you go spend somewhere else for the night. Laundrie, you go the other direction, essentially. Don't spend the night together tonight because of the problems they were having. And then some further details. Of course, apparently Laundrie was here in Northport at his parents' house and then just disappeared about 12 days ago. And the parents claim he went out for a hike in the Carlton Reserve. Also, that they really didn't know where he was going. He apparently left behind his cell phone, credit cards, wallet, and other items, which you'd wonder why you would go for a hike and not take those items with you, unless you're trying to disappear, right? I mean, wouldn't you take your wallet with you just in case you wanted to buy a water at the gas station? I bet he took some cash. In any event, a federal arrest warrant has now been issued for Brian Laundrie, and the basis of that warrant, which is out of Wyoming, is that apparently during the time period from August 30th to September 1st, so about 3 days, he used a Capital One credit card and a PIN to receive more than $1,000 cash advances during that time period. You have to assume, since the warrant was issued, that must be Gabby Petito's Capital One card. And following along with that, you have to assume, why was he doing that? Why was he taking out money out of her Capital One card? If she had disappeared, why did he have the card? I mean, there's a lot of questions there. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that could be asked of his parents, who apparently are remaining silent at this time, other than claiming that he went down into the 25,000-acre Carlton Reserve, which is quite a big area to try to search. Now, I'd heard that law enforcement, what's so amazing is they knew he was at his parents' house. I mean, let's face it, you had to think he was a person of interest. Maybe he wasn't a suspect because they didn't have a body yet, but you had to think, oh, I wonder if this guy had something to do with it. And they claimed they were watching him. But somehow he was able to get away. Well, they weren't. They were watching him, I guess, in sort of just a generalized sense, but they didn't have a patrol car parked out front, which you would think you would have, some kind of a car out front with deputies actually watching him. And I had heard the explanation for that being that they can't spend the money on that kind of thing. I mean, can you imagine the money to have deputies just parked down in front of the house like that for days at a time? And my question would just be, how much money are they spending now on these huge search operations? With, it looks like at least dozens of people involved. Maybe there are hundreds of people involved in some of these searches all total. How much money is being spent on that? And would it have been smarter to have parked a car in front of his parents' house to make sure that he didn't at least walk out the front door and go hiking one day? So more to come on that story. There's no way that he won't eventually be found, in my opinion. We're going to find this guy eventually. and I'm sure the truth will all come out. We could all imagine what the truth might be. I mean, you have to, when you see a person run like this, I mean, that to me is indicative of a guilty conscience, right? He doesn't want to be caught. He doesn't want to be responsible for what he may have done.
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.